Yay! And we're live. Hopefully you guys can see that. And as I just mentioned, or she just mentioned, this is being recorded. So what's going on tonight? So we'll have a few announcements. We'll have our lovely speaker. We'll have the opportunity for a little show and tell, and then we will do a Zoom social breakout. If you want to stick around, we'll have different Zoom rooms. So when I say show and tell, what do I mean? It's an opportunity for you to share some code, side project, questions you had, stuff you've been doing at work, whatever, something vaguely related that you think we could help you with, or you discovered something cool that you want to share with the group. Sometimes people share, sometimes they don't, but we kind of just open the floor and see who has something to say. So I'd like to thank our sponsors. So my own company, Pay It Off, is providing the Zoom and Meetup. Eventually, we'll have beer and pizza again, but not quite yet. So who are we? So hi, I'm Brett. I'm one of the organizers. We also have Jeff and Jeffrey. I suspect Dylan and Alexander are not on the call today as they have small people or working on small people, so are otherwise busy, but will join us when they can. So how do you get a hold of us? Well, we announce our meetings every month on Meetup. We do have a presence in the Denver channel on the Elixir Lang Slack, but we also have our own Slack channel, which is a little more local specific, and it also sticks around longer than the main Elixir channel. You can easily subscribe to that. There's a link at the top of the Denver channel to subscribe to our Denver Beam channel. So if you want to join us there, it's a great place to stay in the loop. Does anyone have any general announcements? All right, I'll throw a couple things out there. So the facilitators of Big Elixir said, hey, facilitators, do you want to give your folks a discount code? I'm saying, sure. So if you want to go to New Orleans next month, I think it's a 20% off code I've got. So if you want to, DM me and I can give you a little discount. I know at least one person's going, so I don't know who else is, but fun opportunity. I hear it's a good conference, never been, but obviously they still have some tickets. So let me know if you want the code. A little later this spring is MPEX, which Don and I are going to for sure. Maybe other people. I don't have any codes for that one, but it's super cheap. It's like $200 for the ticket. So it's a lot more affordable and it's just over the mountains. So pretty close. You probably could road trip it. I wouldn't do that. I'm flying, but
and then it's a one-day conference on the 6th. The 5th is like a training day.
That's
so you
right.
Can optionally take the training class. So I'm taking the live view training with Sophie De Benedetto.
Yes, De Benedetto. Yes, I need to sign up for that. Thank you for reminding me, Don, because I want to do that as well. Let's see. Owen, did you want to plug your talk later on this month?
A couple talks. Well, the same talk twice, maybe. So
okay.
Yeah, February 15th, I'm giving a preview of my talk called Live Showy, talking about having fun with Phoenix and Live View. So 15th, I'll be giving a preview for DC Elixir. And then March 24th, 25th. So for Big Elixir, I'm giving the full talk in person.
Right.
So
okay.
A lot of fun.
So you can go see him or tune in for the preview, which is probably
if you need a selling point, there will be an interactive demo.
Hey, live coding, what could go wrong?
Oh, no, not live coding. That's a different thing. But like
okay. All right.
An app you can interact with at least.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Stay tuned. It'll be fun. Okay. So let's get to the networking aspect. Is there anybody currently hiring? Looking for peeps. Don.
So yes, PepsiCo e-commerce is hiring. So obviously with the pandemic, with the pandemic, funding was kind of delayed this year. But now teams have budgets to hire people. So we're hiring a smattering of Elixir engineers, both backend and full stack, across many teams. We do hire contractors or FTEs or contractors who want to be a contractor and then maybe become an FTE. We also kind of support that as well. Kind of just depends on what you want to do. I posted one FTE listing that we have. More will be coming. I'll post those when they do on the Denver Slack. My team in particular, I'm looking for 2-ish full stack Elixir engineers that either have some LiveView experience or want to learn LiveView. Pretty much all of our UI stuff, anything new that I'm doing specifically on my team is all LiveView. And then also we have spots for backend Python engineers. So if you're a Python engineer and want to learn some Elixir or do some Python and Elixir, it might be a good opportunity for you. Best way to get a hold of me is probably on the Denver Slack. And I saw we have somebody from Poland. We are actually hiring in Poland as well. Right now,
Why not?
we're starting up a dev office there. So our first hires are going to be director level type people. So if you go on PepsiCo jobs and search up Elixir or actually Krakow, Poland, you'll be able to see those job postings. We still haven't found anybody, so they're still open. But once they get hired, the idea is that they're going to then go ahead and turn around and hire many developers. I don't know exactly how many, but it's going to be a bunch. So we're going to have a decent sized office in Krakow, Poland. That's it for me. Thanks.
All right. Anybody else hiring? Was that you, Jeffrey?
I mean, we've got a position open, but we're pretty
There's
close
a thing.
I think we're pretty close to actually making offers and stuff. So I'll bring it up next week if we're still there. But that said, Dave from Kamana did post they are looking for a new CTO. It's a smaller company. Dave's been a member of our meetup for a couple years now. And it's an opportunity for somebody who's got some leadership experience but never been at a executive level spot to get in there and do something like that. So that's posted in the jobs channel in our Elixir, in our Slack org.
Cool. Thanks for pointing that out.
Mhm.
All right. So getting focused. Anybody else looking for a position? All right. If so, go see said Slack channel. Some jobs. All right. It's my monthly plea for speakers. If you would like to speak, if you know someone who wants to speak, if there's a topic you'd like to hear about, reach out to the organizers because we would love to hear from you. We hopefully have somebody scheduled for next month, but beyond that, it's pretty wide open. So plenty of great opportunities. If you would like to, like Owen, practice your talk before doing it at a conference, that's great. If you just want a little experience, it can be also a beginner's talk too. You got a little project, or today I learned, hey, there's this cool little new library called Timex that I want to tell you about. Okay, it's not new, but maybe for you it is. So that would be, people might enjoy hearing about that. And I often learn little nuggets that I didn't know before when people talk anyway. So,
and can I throw out there too that
Yeah.
if you don't have experience speaking, but you want to try it out, we have people that can coach you through it and help you get set up for your first time out.
we do indeed.
Yeah.
So yes, it's the bar is low and it's a very supportive group. So
Yep.
Let us know if you're interested. All right. Hey, there it is. Last slide. And there she is. Our wonderful speaker of the evening, Sundi, is going to be talking about trends in the Elixir community from her podcast, which I'm very curious about. Sundi, would you like to hold questions to the end, or do you want this to be kind of like a dialogue where we throw out questions as you go along?
I actually would be cool if anyone wants to jump in or maybe spring into chat and I should be able to see it with the dual
Okay.
monitor situation. But there is a slide at the end where I would love to get thoughts from people around what I've talked about. So there's also an opportunity there. Yeah, that'll work.
Wonderful. All right. So without further ado, Sundi, I'm going to hand it over to you. Stop that. And the floor is yours.
Cool. So, this is one of those things where I can't see everyone. All right, moving
Yes.
things
Zoom
around.
I
I see it. I just need to. It didn't
presenting
hover.
virtual is the worst.
By Wizard
The mouse
Sundi.
didn't
I love
change
it.
Share
to
yourself, Olsen.
hand
Yeah.
when I could move it.
Yeah.
Just turn off lights. It's all right. Cool. Well, thank you for having me. I definitely did not get cornered at a table at ElixirConf to do this. I'm not under duress right now. Promise. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about some trends that we picked up on the podcast a little bit. I'm not assuming everyone here knows me, so we're just going to go ahead and straight into it. Hi, my name is Sundi. I am one of the co-hosts on Elixir Wizards, which is one of the podcasts in the Elixir space. I currently work at SmartLogic. This is a very SmartLogic branded presentation because this is a very SmartLogic initiative with the podcast. We have some fun little illustrations of some of the co-hosts and maybe some of the pets if you look hard enough. And yeah, so I'm an engineering manager at SmartLogic. I don't code at all these days. So when I said I would be doing this talk, I wanted to give you at least something I would know something about, which at least, you know, I've gotten some interesting tidbits from the last season, it was just completely out now. You can listen to the entire season. I believe the finale just released last week or the week before. So this is actually perfectly timed, a great summary to talk about the trends in the Elixir space that I've heard over the last few weeks. So the past season, we were talking about the impact of Elixir, and we really were just trying to get a better understanding of the community at a baseline. We have talked about domain-driven design. We've talked about architecture. We talked about testing at length. I wonder who we had to talk to about that. You know, we've had so many different subjects that we kind of wanted to bring it back to basics and just hear from the community, the Elixir community. This is going to be a hard one because I'm speaking in Denver. No, you all work at community.
No, I think there's only two of us. It's all good.
All right, you're in the you're lined up on my screen, so you look like a conglomerate to me.
Maybe we have our video on, so yeah.
The video just shifted and you guys shifted together. Oh my gosh. Anyways, so yes, the Elixir community. And we just wanted to hear from people. We wanted to hear from people we don't normally hear from. Maybe names behind big projects like Giannis and Klasko, or names that you see on Twitter all the time, like Adolfo Nito or Brooklyn Myers. We heard a little bit last year about the ElixirConf Africa conference that happened, and Sigu Mago was one of the folks behind that. So we were just really curious to get to some folks that we've heard a lot about, you know, what they've been doing, but you know, get a little more in depth and like, why are you doing this? What does Elixir mean to you? How has it affected your life? And so this is sort of the framing for this talk, is just like some of the things we picked up. A lot of it might be stuff you've already you either knew or like you feel yourselves. And maybe this is just like an affirmation of how Elixir has impacted a lot of people, but it is kind of interesting to see it in a kind of like, this is a data set almost in some ways, right? To understand this is what people have told us on the record, I guess. So the main question that we asked everyone was, what are your hopes for the future of Elixir? And the idea that they gave us, the ideas that they gave us kind of throughout the entire season came under a few categories: education, the idea around hiring, and just like what the community actually means to them. So those were sort of the three buckets that I'll put the feedback under. A lot of people expressed in terms of education that they would love to see Elixir introduced to more people as a first language, if not a first language, earlier in their careers. A lot of people think about Elixir and they go, oh, that's a niche language. You must be a senior to like get into niche languages. When you're a junior engineer, you can't afford to go niche. You have to be doing the popular language to get a job. You have to support yourself. You know, you have to further yourself in your career before you can spoil yourself with some fun niche languages. All of these like stereotypes kind of came out, and a lot of people would love to be a part of this movement towards getting junior engineers and people who are switching into engineering as a career exposed to Elixir earlier on. So that is definitely something that people talked about. I know Adolfo Nito is working on teaching some Elixir in his functional programming class at his university, which is in Portuguese. I think the acronym is UT RFP. There's some arrangement of those letters at the university he teaches at. He's certainly giving a functional programming course, which is one of the few that I've heard of at the college level, which I think is fascinating. We've also heard recently that Brooklyn Myers is about to be a part of the, or is currently a part of the Elixir boot camp at DACYard. So just to get into some quotes that they were talking about, Sigu specifically was talking about teaching a lot of people Elixir in Kenya. A lot of what Cody does, I mean, it's a consultancy at the end of the day, but he did, take his time to teach people Elixir. And a thing that he noticed was that they were having a harder time sometimes thinking about functional programming as a thing. So he was asking them to use pipes more often. So this was actually a really interesting concept. He said that once you have to think of something functionally and take its result and put it to use in another place, which is how obviously you use pipes. That really started making them think functionally. A lot of them started learning other object-oriented languages and really thought like that. And it was really hard to break them out of that, but pipes were the key to teaching them how to get out of that. So that was actually a really interesting tidbit. I also, I work with someone right now who's learning Elixir for the first time. And something that they said that reminded me of this was that the pipe operator is their favorite. It reminds them of the Mario pipe from Super Mario Brothers. They're like, yeah, your code just down into the pipe. And I was just like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. You're doing great. So, pipes are a fun avenue to learning Elixir. Brooklyn, obviously, well, sorry, not obviously. If you don't know Brooklyn's amazing, is part of the Elixir Newbie podcast, does a lot of Twitter summaries. So he'll go review a talk and then do like a Twitter thread about everything that he read, or just any Elixir content out there. He's reviewed it at some point or is in the process of reviewing it. And it's just fascinating for a lot of us who just don't have a lot of time. So he's created a new content avenue for people to be exposed to Elixir, which I think is awesome. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But he mentioned that, there are a lot of resources out there, but that a lot of the resources are kind of targeted towards seniors. They all kind of give you this idea of you have previous knowledge of programming, you have previous knowledge of certain things in programming, words that maybe you've never heard before, the vocabulary words that kind of spin you around. You look that up, and then you finally get back to what you were doing and you forgot, It was interesting to hear this from his perspective as somebody new to programming, relatively new to programming, but also definitely new to Elixir, a self-proclaimed Elixir newbie. And so in his episode, we talked a lot about what drove him to kind of create that kind of content. And a lot of it was around the resources were there, but they weren't necessarily geared towards what he thought would be helpful for him to learn, what he thought would be helpful for others to learn. And for him, really just making this kind of content was to help himself learn. And he was hoping that sharing that on Twitter and other places would be helpful for others. And it definitely has been for me, a not self-proclaimed newbie, just to catch up on stuff that I didn't have time to listen to a whole 40-minute talk that he happened to. So interesting perspective there for sure. So another thing that kind of leads from the junior aspects is hiring. If you've known me at all in any capacity, you've heard me complain about this. There are so many people hiring for Elixir jobs, and a lot of them are looking for Elixirists. We're looking for an Elixir developer. We're looking for Elixir developer. No one's looking for a developer that might be interested in a niche language or might be looking, and I'm sorry, I don't want to say no one. I know plenty of people on this call are probably, happy to teach people Elixir. Generally speaking, we see a lot of people looking for less Elixirists. Looking for Elixirists, less looking for programming. So what this kind of means is that we have more opportunities in Elixir, which is amazing. We're seeing larger companies. Pepsi obviously is one of the biggest names that I've heard. When I first joined the Elixir space, I was like, Pepsi. I mean, that the thing in college, I was a Pepsi campus or a Coke campus, and I was actually a Pepsi campus, and I will not tell you how I felt about it. Pepsi's hiring, which is amazing. Big companies are hiring Elixir roles. But then we're seeing a little bit of a decrease in, we're looking for good programmers and we're willing to teach them Elixir. We see it every once in a while. I feel like a lot of us got those opportunities to work in Elixir based on that. I know I did, a lot of my coworkers did. Hired me because I was a good engineer or I had some decent thoughts rattling around in my head. They were happy to give me a chance, and I'm glad it worked out. And then they taught me Elixir, so that worked out really well. And I think a lot of other people can do that. This gets a little bit into the Elixir adoption category, which is not quite what we were touching on this season in the podcast, but it comes up. It's like it's woven into every single conversation you kind of tend to have around hiring. So it's interesting. It's almost counterintuitive that you're seeing more people trying to hire for people who already know Elixir because Elixir is getting more popular. You see people expect it more. When it was more niche than it is even now, nobody expected you to know Elixir. And so the idea to train for it was a lot easier to swallow. And now it's a little less so. So I'm not telling anyone to go backwards in time. I'm sure we would all love to go to backwards in time, maybe a few years, and just do some things differently. But pick this one up from the past, maybe if you're thinking about hiring. And there's actually a lot of reasons, pros and cons to hiring Elixir versus non-Elixir. Maybe we can talk about that in a Q&A later, but that was definitely something that came up quite a bit. It also kind of leans towards that junior conversation more too, where you're expecting somebody to know Elixir. They are likely not going to be a junior engineer. And so we kind of start to flood the market with senior engineers, and there's no one to pick up. There's no one to take over. I have a whole ranty blog post about it if you're all interested in that. And actually Sigu kind of talked about that exact thing, flooding our community with enough junior engineers, we'll finally have enough people to hire. We'll finally create a hiring pool of mids or even more seniors at some point. And then we can have people become managers. We can, hire people into other roles as they grow throughout their career. What we're doing is we're just kind of creating people in a vacuum. I'm not thinking of a good analogy, but
do you mind if I throw something in on top of that? One of the other challenges there is that if you don't have enough developers, eventually companies give up adopting that language, right? And so for me, I really like working in Elixir. I really enjoy it. I would like to continue to work in Elixir, mostly because I don't want to have to go write a testing book for another language. But if we don't make it so that companies can afford to actually build out Elixir teams, then they'll go find another language. It doesn't matter how good the language is.
Yeah, and a lot of us love the language. I don't think we're here if we don't love the language. So obviously we all want to do what we can to kind of make it better, which is actually coming up soon too. But yes, you said it right here. So I'm not going to be reading anybody's quotes. Everyone here can read. And yeah, so then just like in broader terms, just the ideas behind what people were hoping for in the community were just generally that, they want to stay engaged in the community because we love the language, we love the people, the conferences are fun, they have lazy rivers, eagles. What was the last thing? What do we have? An ice rink? Yeah, I thought that was cool. Nobody else did because they were cold the whole time. To each their own. We all hope to see the language grow, the community grow. That's generally what we were seeing. And so I'll just take you into what some people were talking about. Jonathan, Costco, does anyone know who this person is? Just maybe raise a hand or chats. Has anyone heard of Livebook?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's real quiet. Jonathan is a gem and is basically, I can't say single-handedly wrote Livebook. He had a lot of direction from Jose, and Jose mentored him to some great extent, but Jose really let Jonathan be his own true authentic self and build what he was going to build. And live book is what happened. And so that's a great episode if you haven't caught up to that. He's also a speed cuber. He can do the Rubik's cubes in 5 seconds, sometimes blindfolded. Yeah, I'm spoiling the episode. Go listen to it. But, you know, he's very new to the community and somehow built something that we all love and use or aim to use, want to incorporate into our resources, our tooling, our documentation. Live book is so cool. Like, just think about what it's done for nerves. So just glowing recommendations for Jonathan's episode here. But it's just nice to see that even somebody new. Also, sorry, he was not even finished with school, by the way. He was not even finished when he was working on live, just not to make anyone stress out about their lives. Yeah, I was just so impressed. And so he's so new to the, you know, the community, the language, and to all of it, that it was just so cool to see his perspective. Just he even can tell that people are, like, a lot of companies are using Elixir just to improve themselves, to improve on the resources, to improve their development time, so many things. All of these things that you all here, I'm sure, already know. It's just cool that a newcomer can see that right off the bat, which is really awesome. Meryl of Elixir Conf hosting fame with, oh, her cat is in here, I didn't notice. You know, also again reiterated that she'd love to see Elixir as a first language for folks. Meryl also, I think, was part of the Flatiron School, and so, you know, was a boot camp grad, did not learn Elixir as a first language, but can definitely see the benefits to why that would be super helpful for people. Owen, if you want to chime in, you were in this conversation, but Meryl was
yes,
absolutely.
and my memory is perfect.
Okay, so word for word, what did she say?
It's false. See, where do we start?
Yeah, I did put you.
But she did get into Elixir at a point when she was considered like more newer into the industry too, right? So it wasn't, I don't think she was like a super senior developer at the point where she got exposed to her first Elixir project. And same with a lot of the people that were on that team that were using it there, right? And so they've got a pretty good experience of like coming from Ruby for just a little bit of Ruby experience and then jumping into Elixir. And so I think that all the people that worked on the project that they've been touting are good examples of, like, you don't have to be super senior to just start up and get productive in the language.
Yeah, I feel like we always assume that when somebody is like emceeing a conference, that they are somebody who's been programming for 15, 20 years or something. I don't know why that's an assumption, but I just, like, Meryl came on this episode and then talked about, I think, boot camp graduating in like 2017 or 2018, something kind of like relatively recent in my memory, like after I'd moved to where I currently live, which is sort of how I gauged my life on, you know, when did I move to a certain place. And I was just like, oh, that's actually not that long ago. And that was just awesome to realize, you know, how much, like, how comfortable she felt in the space to do so much, give so much back. She talked a lot about her excitement for Sophie De Benedetto's live view book. Oh, that's going to be hard. Live view book with Bruce Tate. And just like how that's impacted people who are just learning Elixir. They're learning it through that book. It was really cool to see that too. So again, just goodwill towards the community and just seeing how people are growing in that way. This is a familiar face to some people on the call. Arthi, wonderful human. I talk to her about food all the time. It's great. She also, you know, would love to see people doing Elixir earlier on in their career, which is just like super fun. She really enjoys working in Elixir. I know a lot of that has to do with having stellar coworkers, as she maybe has said in the past, but her learning experience has been really engaging, and she really wants to see that for everyone else. So I had a very similar experience to her. Not the same coworkers, but great coworkers. I liked working on Elixir mostly because of how engaging my friends on my team were, and just like, I don't know, the language doesn't really inform the people you're going to work with, but it definitely was something that came up a lot. And then Todd, if you don't know Todd is wonderful, works at Jack Pocket. We had Todd on the season finale of the last season that we're talking about, the impact of Elixir, and he disagreed with everything we said on the whole season. We did talk about Elixir for the first 30 minutes, and then when we did, he disagreed with everything. No, he does like the idea of bringing more people from different communities into Elixir. He doesn't necessarily agree that it has to be a first language. That's not necessarily something that he thinks right off the bat. Again, Meryl, learned Ruby first, not for very long, but went straight into Elixir after, and it was still valuable. The quote's not here, but I think he said something along the lines of, "I'm not really worried about." What is the regular quote about? It's not the end goal, it's the journey. He said the opposite, I think, of whatever the normal quote is. Whatever that one was. And it was really interesting. I like getting Todd's perspective, especially when it's the complete opposite of an entire season's worth and you invite him to the finale. But he still did agree that we want to, talk to people from different communities. And that is something that I'll get into in 3 seconds. So, story time. The story is unfortunately not about my cat turning a building into fire, but I thought this was dramatic enough to make everyone pause. Having had all these conversations over the last 3 months on the podcast about adoption, about a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, reminds me actually of a community I just recently exited, only just because I didn't have time to give back to it. I used to be very heavily involved in IEEE, Institute of Electronics and Electrical Engineers. It's just so many, I can't even say it in one breath. It was mostly by accident. I never studied electrical engineering. But I went as far as becoming the section chair of the Washington, D.C. chapter, which was 4,000 people. I managed that for like 2.5 years, / still can't get rid of some things. So, was active in it. And one problem that we consistently had was membership, adoption, just this kind of constant conversation that you all heard us talk about with Elixir. And it took me 7 years to figure out a common thread that we were having, common problem that we were having, which was we had events and we were marketing, this is why it's a benefit to be a member. And we marketed our events on our internal event system. We didn't use Meetup, we used something called vTools, which we built ourselves and only sent the invites to our members. We had an internal communications, so it's like a Slack clone kind of that they made called Collaboratech. We only used it to talk to ourselves, our members, our friends inside our own insulated thing. And we only, what was the other one? Oh, we only sent mailing lists to our own members because legal reasons, I think. I don't know if you can tell what I'm getting at. We only talk to each other. So how are we expecting to grow our community, to grow our people's interests? And as much as I love seeing everyone's faces, people that I've talked to all the time, and I'm gonna throw Chris Bell out there. Hi, Chris. I see your face now, and I didn't see it earlier.
Look at that.
Just sliding that in there. It's nice to see your face. It's nice to see all of your faces, but I'd love to see some new faces. And I think that just gets right into some things that maybe we could do to make these hopes that people have talked about in the Elixir community into a future. So at Smart Logic, we're real into action items. So I couldn't think of another name for the slide. I'm so sorry if I've just jutted you back into work zone. But hiring juniors is like something I've just been screaming from the rooftops for a little while. So we've talked about the benefits of hiring juniors a ton already. I can leave that there. We can talk more about it in a little bit. But the one that I thought was novel to me, at least as an idea, was to talk to other communities about Elixir. We don't do that enough, or at least if people are doing that, I'm not seeing it because I'm also not very involved in other communities. I'm in some Women Who Code Slacks and on some Women Who Code Hackathon mailing lists, but that's probably it. Diversify Tech, I think, is something based out of DC that I kind of interface with every once in a while. But we should do some like Elixir talks at functional programming conferences,
Yeah.
or go to a JavaScript conference, crash it. You know, while the people are speaking about JavaScript and the latest React hook, you can
You're
just
saying
stand up in the
let it
hallway.
crash?
Yes, just stand there and let it crash with a little Elixir banner.
We can,
doing
yeah,
the
I'll
dance.
wear purple hats or something.
Yeah, exactly. Just be as loud as possible. Or maybe a little more attainable, be a guest on a non-Elixir podcast. I have a friend who has a podcast called Whiskey, Web, and Whatnot. He's an Ember guy, but he's also a whiskey guy. They try a new whiskey every week, or not every week, whatever, however often they record as often as the Outlaws do. And so that was fun. I talked to people who don't know anything about Elixir. We compared life experiences. We talked about whiskey. It was a great time. I'm mostly embarrassed about things that I got wrong about Elixir on that podcast. I will blame the whiskey if anybody asks. But it was a fun time. Like, and you know, maybe somebody listening to that podcast will now look into Elixir because they were all in on Ember, and then they were like, this E language, I'm gonna go to another E language. You know, because that's how people pick their programming languages.
Yes.
And obviously, you know, it would be awesome if people can continue writing blog posts and case studies. I think this is something that Jose's been talking about since day one. Case studies, case studies, case studies. If Elixir has worked for you, if your company or you personally can invest some time into talking about Elixir and why it works for you, the more content that's out there, the more people who are going to find it. But yeah, these are some big ones. And before I run on through, if anyone else has any other thoughts onto how to get to our golden future, be happy to hear.
Ah.
I'm going to throw this out there. This is a lot smaller scale, but I volunteer with Bruce Tate's Elixir chat group, which is it was originally, it's chat CATT or CHATT as in the first part of Chattanooga, but now it's online, right? And it is a place for underrepresented minorities at any skill level to show up and get coaching from people in Elixir. And they are starting to hit a place where I think they're about to start doing a drive to get more mentees, where the meetings are starting to be now where the mentors are actually outnumbering the mentees. So we're talking about a place where you potentially can get one-on-one tutoring on a regular cadence. And so if anybody knows people who are actually interested even in just getting started, or that like literally anywhere in the spectrum, or coming from another language, anything, you can send them my way and I can help get them connected to the group.
Cool.
One of the things that we've talked about, oh, I see a hand up. I'm going to yield to that.
Where I don't see. Oh, there it is, Ivan. Okay, I was like, where's the hand? So many people. Go for it. Oh, maybe
I need my
muted.
you're on mute button. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
need a sign. You're muted.
Nope.
Right now?
Yep.
Gotcha.
I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in my case, I'm well. I live here in Mexico City. As I put on the chat, well, I'm one of the creators, of the founders of the Elixir meetup in Mexico City. It's a huge one. In my previous company, we try to adopt. Well, we adopt for some projects Elixir since 2015, I think so. 15 or 17, I think so. And also, well, at this moment, I have been working with Brooklyn in order to translate the content of his blog to Spanish, because one of the main barriers for the Latin American people, it's a language, and well, also at least one hour, a couple of hours per week, we chat about our projects and about the podcast. I also listen. Recently discovered your podcast, The Wizards. I like it very much. I like it very much. It was very funny and very fresh. I like it. I like it. I listen so many chapters, and as you said, I like so much Elixir. I met Jose in 2015 when he went to the event was a Lone Star in Austin so many years ago, and we tried to convince him to come to Mexico City in order to show that this technology was the future at that time. And in Mexico, there are not so many companies that adopt a huge one or a big one, at least. Mainly the startups are the ones that are they are trying to use this technology. But well, for example, my company is a big one. Well, it's a big company. We are in 6 countries, and all our systems are developed in Elixir.
Great.
That is something that I didn't mention in the slides, but something that we did do this season, kind of intentionally, but not really, was we happened to talk to, I think, 5 different continents, countries. I think somebody threw out continents, which kind of sounds correct to me. We definitely had a lot of time zone budgeting issues, so that also very much sounds correct to me. And it was just really, really cool to hear about like Elixir Kenya, Elixir China. We talked to Adolfo, talking about Brazil and like opening up his class to people in Europe and in England. And it was just really, really cool to hear about that. And it's something that I've now tried to be more conscious of, like telling people time zones when I'm giving people times for things. And also if you have a podcast, trying to get the transcripts into maybe not every language, but at least knowing, like, we know Elixir, for example, has like a humongous community in Japan. We always try to make sure for sure that we have a transcript in Japanese because of the nerds community out there. That's just like something to think about. And, to be as inclusive as possible is just, sure way to get more adoption. And it's also interesting to see how in some of these countries, people are using like WeChat or GroupMe or things to chat with Elixirs, because that's the number of folks. It's like the number in this room right now. It's like how many in the entire country are using Elixir for them. And so they're able to use something smaller like that and not have to rely on a Slack group. But it is really interesting to kind of think about the needs of other countries and people who are using our language all over the world. Any other thoughts? This is all fun stuff for me, definitely. Cool.
Yeah, Ivan has his
Well,
hand up still.
Oh, okay.
Did you have another thought, Ivan?
Could be an artifact.
I think his hand's just been up the whole time.
Gotcha.
Maybe.
Can you imagine being in school? And
Yeah,
like,
sorry
actually-
guys. Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, also, I also I met Adolfo at the Code Beam US, and also I have been talking a lot with him. He's very active, and he's learning Spanish, and also I'm learning Portuguese because we are landing at in Brazil is the next country that we arrived with my with the current company that I'm working on right now. And I like very much to work with people, as you said, from all the world. And the Elixir is expanding, and the community is is something that I like very much. The openness, how could I say, they're excited. They're excited to create better things. How, I don't know. I'm coming from the mobile world, from the Swift and the Objective C world. But when I saw Jose with Elixir and Chris with Phoenix, I said like I have faith again in the backend, so I changed my path, and I went to learn the functional programming, mainly with Elixir and a bit of Haskell.
Cool. Any other suggestions? If not, I want to thank Sundi. That was really cool. We appreciate
Yeah.
you joining us here with our Zoom
Thank you for
class.
having me. The
Um,
only
oh.
final thing I'll just plug is that if you do listen to the podcast, are a fan of the podcast, we have a currently running till Thursday audience survey, smr.tl/survey. I can toss the link in chat, I think, just to see how you like the podcast, what guests you like. You can plug yourself as a guest. Would love to chat with you. Yeah, would be fun to hear everyone's feedback. And Smart Logic, we're always building stuff. If you need, just hire us, and it's great. Thank you.
Like what she said. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for that. So let's move on to the show and tell section. Is there anyone who has something that he or she's interested in sharing with the group or questions they wanted to pose? Okay. Not seeing anything. Nope.
When's the
Okay.
next meetup?
Then we'll do the breakout. So I will turn off the.
What was that, Owen?
Quick question. When's the next meetup for this group?
Oh, they are the first Monday of every month, unless there's like a holiday.
Except for
So-
Labor Day. Yeah.
And 4th of July this
Wasn't-
year. So
I wasn't
Ah.
prepared for show and tell, but maybe if I join next time.
Sweet.
yeah,
Please do.
yeah.
I was close on something, but it didn't have time with JS commands. But
Oh.
it's all in proprietary code, so I couldn't really show it. I wanted to like rip it out and show it. So I'm hoping also next time to have something.
Yeah, Jeff and I thought we were going to this time, but we failed. So
Stay tuned. Stuff is
Yeah.
coming. It will be
February is
great.
not a good month.
Yeah.
Maybe March will be better.
It is what it is. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to wrap up the recording then.